Sheesh, I wonder what this is called. There are two types of hair transplants: FUE, follicular unit extraction, and FUT, follicular unit transplantation. FUE involves the individual extraction of follicles, which are then transplanted elsewhere on the scalp. Meanwhile, FUT involves removing a long strip of the scalp, separating the follicles, and then transplanting them. Each procedure's advantages and disadvantages depend on the patient and on their desired outcome. Stay until the end of this video because today I will be discussing the two types of procedures, which one is best for you, and what the results of some people are that you should also be expecting. Hi, my name is GARRIDO. For those who don't know me, I do videos to review clinically proven hair loss treatments. Make sure to subscribe and see my other videos if you want to learn how to reverse baldness, as I did. Fun fact, in 1952, the New York dermatologist Dr. Norman Orentreich performed the first ever hair transplant surgery. Previously, thoughts were that the transplanted hair would act like the original hair on the bald spots of the scalp and fall out. Okay, let us start with the first one, FUE, follicular unit extraction. FUE is a type of hair transplant procedure that first involves shaving the back of your hair. While the patient is under local anesthesia, individual units of hair are harvested from the back of your head and tiny incisions are placed in the scalp. Next, using a needle or a blade and a microscope, the surgeon will make small holes in the scalp where the grafts are to be transplanted. The grafts are then transplanted into the holes at the donor side, and the surgical site is covered with bandages or gauze. Alright, let us continue with FUT, follicular unit transplantation. With FUT, a strip of the scalp is removed from the back of your head, and the area where the scalp was removed is then closed with stitches. Next, the surgeon will separate the strip of the scalp into smaller pieces with a scalpel in order to isolate the hair follicles. These smaller pieces are called grafts. A surgeon will sometimes separate the original scalp into thousands of grafts, which will contain normally between 1 and 4 hair follicles. Next, using a needle or a blade and a microscope, the surgeon will make small holes in the scalp where the hair is to be transplanted. Here, the entire procedure is also performed under local anesthesia. But what's the big difference between FUE and FUT? The main difference between FUE and FUT is how the hair is extracted. In an FUT hair transplant, the removal of a strip on the scalp will result in a linear scar. This is, by the way, the type of hair transplant that Elon Musk had in the early 2000s. You can recognize this by the scar in the back of his hair. With FUE, however, the extraction and transplantation of individual hair follicles results in far more minimal scarring overall. A scar resulting from an FUE transplant will look like a small dot. This is the type of hair transplant that Machine Gun Kelly, for example, had. Now, for the patients having an FUT hair transplant, they will wish to grow their hair longer to hide the linear scar. Now, FUT hair transplant takes generally less time than an FUE, though this will depend largely on the patient and the amount of hair transplanted overall. So, which one is best? Whether you choose FUE hair transplant or FUT will depend on several factors, which you will discuss in a consultation with your surgeon. Often, individuals who require a larger amount of hair follicles to be transplanted are better candidates for an FUT hair transplant, since FUT hair transplants provide a bigger yield of follicles for transplantation. FUE transplants, on the other hand, might be better suited for those who require a smaller procedure, or for those who wish to return to their daily activities shortly after the hair transplant, as the recovery of the FUE hair transplant is often shorter. Why? Because the procedure is here less invasive. Let's see the most frequently asked questions about the hair transplant. Can the same person have an FUT and an FUE hair transplant? Yes, the same person can have both surgeries. In some cases, FUT hair transplants may be performed first, meaning that the scalp may become too tight to perform further FUT procedures. If this occurs, the surgeon can proceed with an FUE surgery for subsequent procedures. How long do hair surgical procedures take? An FUT hair transplant can take around 4 to 12 hours, while an FUE hair transplant can take between 6 and 12. Some patients will need to return to have their hair surgery completed on a second day. Is the transplanted hair going to stay there forever? Because the transplanted hair is taken from regions that are genetically resistant to hair loss, the newly implanted hair should stay there forever. However, as we age, those hairs can also naturally lose some density like the rest of your hair. Alright, I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to learn about more effective hair loss remedies. Until next time, I wish you a happy hair loss journey. Adios!